If you're seeing this, then the step you just took was not small, and it was not ordinary, even if it looked simple on the surface, even if no one around you reacted to it, even if you yourself almost dismissed it as just another decision. Because what just happened was not about the action itself. It was about what that action triggered. And you are only now beginning to step into the consequence of something that has been building for years. You didn't realize it, but that moment activated a cycle that has been waiting on you for a long time. Not days, not months, but years of positioning, years of being held back, years of being shaped in ways you didn't understand at the time. And now, that one step, that one shift, that one decision to move differently has aligned everything that was waiting behind the scenes. This wasn't random. It was release. There were doors that never opened, no matter how hard you tried. There were paths that seemed bright, but never stabilized. There were opportunities that felt close, but never fully formed. And it wasn't because you weren't ready to receive. It was because you weren't in position to activate what those things were connected to. Because certain outcomes are not triggered by desire. They are triggered by alignment. And alignment only happens when the internal shift matches the external move. You didn't just take a step. You matched the timing. And when timing matches alignment, everything that was waiting begins to move. You weren't rejected. You were delayed. There's a difference between being blocked and being held. And what you experienced was not resistance from the world. It was restriction from God. Because what was attached to your next level could not be released to the version of you that existed before that step. And so you were kept in place, not to frustrate you, but to prepare you for the exact moment when your movement would carry the weight required to unlock what had been assigned to you. This wasn't random. It was activation. You felt it already, even if you can't fully explain it yet. There is a shift in how things are responding to you, a subtle change in how situations unfold, a different kind of clarity in how you see what's in front of you. And that is not coincidence. That is consequence. Because once activation happens, your environment begins to reorganize itself around your new position. You are no longer where you were, and everything around you knows it. You are chosen. There were years where it felt like nothing significant was happening, where effort did not match results, where progress felt invisible, where time seemed to pass without giving you anything concrete in return. And those years were not empty. They were structured. They were building something inside you that could not be rushed, something that required pressure, silence, and separation to fully develop before it could be expressed externally. You were being built in private, and now you have moved in public. That's why this step carries weight. Because it was not just a decision, it was a signal. This wasn't random. It was confirmation. God does not respond to hesitation the same way He responds to movement. And for a long time you were being trained in stillness, trained in waiting, trained in observing without acting, because premature movement would have placed you in positions you were not ready to sustain. But now that you have moved with clarity instead of reaction, with awareness instead of pressure, with alignment instead of urgency, that movement has triggered a different kind of response. A response that matches who you are now, not who you were before. You didn't realize it, but that step closed a cycle that had been open for years. A cycle of preparation, of testing, of refinement. And once that cycle closed, another one opened immediately. Not gradually, not slowly, but instantly. Because the moment you meet the requirement, the next phase does not wait. It begins. This wasn't random. It was transition. You may not see the full outcome yet, but you can feel the shift. And that feeling is not imagination, it is recognition. Because something inside you knows that what just happened carries more weight than it appears to. Something inside you understands that you are no longer standing in the same position, even if your external environment has not fully caught up yet. And that gap between internal shift and external reflection is where many people get confused. But you are not confused. You are aware. You know something has changed. And you are right. You weren't rejected. You were positioned. There are things that are now moving toward you that could not approach you before, not because they didn't exist, but because you were not aligned with them. And alignment is not about effort. It is about identity. It is about who you are being when you move, not just what you are doing. And that step you took was not just an action. It was a reflection of who you have become. And what you have become carries access. This wasn't random. It was access. The chosen are not defined by how much they do, but by when they move. Because timing reveals alignment. And alignment determines what gets activated. And what you just activated was not small. It was connected to a longer timeline than you realize. A timeline that includes years of preparation that now begin to show results in ways you cannot fully predict. You are stepping into a sequence, not a moment. A sequence. And sequences unfold with precision. That means not everything will happen at once, but everything will happen in order, and each step will lead to the next, without confusion, without force, without the need to chase what is meant to align with you. Because once activation happens, pursuit changes. You don't chase. You encounter. You don't force. You recognize. You don't guess. You discern. This wasn't random. It was elevation. There is a responsibility in this level of movement, because now that you have activated this phase, you cannot return to passive positioning. You cannot go back to waiting without awareness. You cannot move without intention, because now your movement carries consequence. Now your decisions carry direction. Now your presence carries weight. And weight requires control. Not control over others. Control over yourself. Over your choices. Over your alignment. Because what you have activated will continue to unfold as long as you stay in alignment with it. You are not guessing anymore. You are operating. You are chosen. There is no need to question whether that step mattered. It did. There is no need to wait for confirmation from others. It will not come from them. Because what you activated was not for them to validate. It was for you to recognize. And recognition is enough. This wasn't random. It was confirmation. You have entered a phase where movement creates response, where clarity creates direction, where alignment creates opportunity. And everything that follows from this point will trace back to that moment when you decided to move differently. You didn't realize it at the time, but you do now. Waiting is over. You moved, and that movement changed everything. And what you are stepping into now will not look dramatic at first. It will not arrive with noise or obvious signs that everyone can recognize. Because what has been activated in your life does not need attention to be real. It needs alignment to continue unfolding. And that is exactly where you are now. Standing in a position where your awareness is ahead of your external reality, where you can feel the shift before you fully see the results. And that space requires a different kind of discipline than anything you have practiced before. This wasn't random. It was stabilization. Because once something, this significance, is activated, it cannot be rushed. It cannot be forced into visibility. It has to be sustained through consistency, through clarity, through decisions that match the level you have stepped into. And this is where most people fail. Not at the moment of activation, but in the moments that follow, when nothing appears to change immediately and doubt tries to return, when the old patterns try to pull them back into reacting instead of maintaining alignment. But you are not operating the same way anymore. You recognize what just happened. You understand that the absence of immediate results does not mean the absence of movement, because what has been activated is not surface-level change. It is structural change. And structural change reorganizes everything from the inside out before it becomes visible on the outside. You weren't rejected. You were anchored. There is a reason why your life has required patience at a level that others do not seem to experience. A reason why you have been placed in situations where waiting was not optional but necessary, where timing was never in your control, where outcomes could not be forced, no matter how much effort you applied. And that reason becomes clear now, because patience was not about delay. It was about building the capacity to hold what is now beginning to enter your life. This wasn't random. It was capacity. What is coming toward you is not small, and anything that carries weight requires someone who can handle it without collapsing under pressure, without rushing decisions, without losing alignment when things begin to move quickly. And that is why you were trained in stillness before you were allowed to move, because stillness builds control, and control sustains growth. You are no longer moving out of urgency. You are moving out of understanding. And that changes everything. You are chosen. There will be moments in this phase where things begin to align in ways that feel almost too precise. Opportunities appearing at the right time, conversations leading exactly where they need to go, situations unfolding without resistance. And it will feel different from anything you have experienced before, not because it is easier, but because it is aligned. And alignment removes the friction that used to exist when you were trying to force outcomes that were not meant for you. You will notice the difference immediately. Because when something is aligned, it does not confuse you. It does not drain you. It does not require you to question your position. It fits. And you recognize it without needing validation. This wasn't random. It was synchronization. At the same time, there will be things that continue to fall away. But now, you will not interpret that as loss. You will see it for what it is. A continuation of the same process that brought you here. A refinement that ensures only what matches your current level remains in your path. And because your awareness has changed, your response to these removals will also change. You will not hold on the same way. You will not question the same way. You will not resist the same way. You will release. And that release will accelerate what is trying to reach you. You weren't rejected. You were cleared again. This wasn't random. It was precision. You are entering a phase where your decisions carry more weight than before, where small movements create larger outcomes, where a single aligned action can open multiple paths at once. And that is why your awareness had to reach this level before activation occurred. Because without awareness, power is misused. But with awareness, power becomes direction. And now you have direction. Not based on what others are doing. Not based on what is popular or expected. But based on what you recognize as aligned. And that recognition becomes your guide. You are no longer looking for signs the same way. Because you have become one. Your presence, your clarity, your movement, all of it reflects the shift that has already taken place inside you. And that reflection influences what comes toward you. Because alignment attracts alignment. And what does not match cannot stay in your space for long. This wasn't random. It was influence. You may not realize how much has changed yet, but others will begin to see it. Not necessarily in a way they can explain, but in how they respond to you, in how they approach you, in how they either move closer or create distance. And those reactions are not about you trying to prove anything. They are about what you now carry. Because when someone is aligned, it becomes visible without effort. And that visibility creates separation again. Not forced. Natural. You are chosen. There is no need to go back and analyze the step you took. No need to overthink whether it was the right move. No need to question its impact, because what has already been activated cannot be reversed by doubt. It can only be sustained by alignment. And as long as you continue to move from the same place that led you to that step, everything that has been triggered will continue to unfold exactly as it is meant to. You are not at the beginning. You are in the continuation of something that started long before you were aware of it. And now that you are aware, your role is not to force the outcome, but to remain aligned with the process. This wasn't random. It was continuation. Everything from this point forward will trace back to that moment. Not because the moment was dramatic, but because it was decisive. It reflected a level of clarity that had not been present before. And that clarity is what activated the sequence you are now stepping into. You moved once. Now everything moves in response. And that is how you know it was real. Not because someone confirmed it, but because your life is already responding to it. Waiting is over. You made a move. And that move placed you exactly where you were meant to be.